Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. It is a gorgeous day, a gorgeous morning in Florida, and I wish you all were here with us. But I hope you will enjoy your day wherever you are. I am delighted to present today something that I find extremely interesting about healthcare and how it is using the new disruptive technologies. If you look at a word cloud that was probably presented or put together by a number of people, one of the things you see is that the two largest letters are technology and healthcare. Interestingly, I don't see wellness in this. And I think that's a very important missing element. And of course, that's what you're talking about today. But what I'm going to be talking about is healthcare and technology. This is important because it affects populations. For example, the rise of the chronic conditions globally, a growing elderly population, stretched health services, dispersed medical data, misdiagnoses, late diagnoses, overdiagnosis, kill millions of people and cost $10 billion every year. That's on a population level. On a personal level, personal health care extends from mental well-being to weight control to prevention and issues that are largely focused on individual wellness. But there are barriers to monitoring, sustaining, or improving wellness and healthcare for many citizens because there's limited access to healthcare. It's often inconvenient or inappropriate or impossible for a number of people. Personal and psychological resistance to healthcare. There's a stigma about going to a doctor, particularly if there are mental health issues. Cost is high and very time consuming. Everyone knows how long you wait for an appointment. So these are barriers to keeping up health. But with technology, a lot of that can change. There are wellness products and services. There are wellness solutions. This is technology's new disruption, health and wellness. If you look at the large picture on this side, you can see that this was back in 2020 even, 59.5 billion was expended on a healthcare solutions market. The wellness in the workforce is important. Tracking, other kinds of things within the workforce. But digital technologies can revolutionize and democratize healthcare by improving timeliness, accuracy of decision making, facilitating decision monitoring with surveillance, developing new drugs, and empowering patients to manage their own health status. I'm going to talk about all of these shortly. But let's look first. What are the categories of AI in healthcare? There's patient-facing AI, there's doctor-facing AI, AI is used in telehealth, AI is used in research. Look at the patient-facing first. AI chatbots. There are a lot of people that would rather talk to a chatbot than talk to a doctor. They feel like it's a little more private and a little less invasive in their personal lives. Wearables and devices. We're going to talk about a lot of those. Personalized genetics, mental health, women's health, and skin. Skin is interesting to put on here as opposed to heart or something else. But skin is the largest organ system of the body and the one of obviously most exposed. And it can tell you a great deal about health. So a lot of AI can pick up different symptoms from the skin. Doctor-facing, medical records, data analytics. You'll see how all of these are important. Medical imaging. You'll see how AI fits in medical imaging. And hospitals. AI goes all through the hospital, whether it's facilities, whether it's cleaning, whether it's technology used to diagnose and so forth. Research, obviously, AI is used in several places and in telehealth. Telemedicine now, particularly with COVID, has become much more prominent than it ever has been. Managing diseases, we're going to look at that when we look at other technologies and lifestyle management. So artificial intelligence connects individuals with the medical community. It improves transparencies and it compensates for physician and nurse shortage. And all of you are well aware that around the world, physicians and nurses are in very short supply, largely due to burnout, largely due to COVID as a result of COVID. So AI helps individuals, not the doctors, but also individuals make better decisions, which reduces their costs and improves outcomes. So health intelligence improves patient treatment, individual population health monitoring, and health management the world over. So what are we talking about? AI is obviously an umbrella term that encompasses a set of tools, a set of software that make computers behave intelligently, allows them to sense, to reason, to act, to adapt, to develop models, and you'll see examples of that. Machine learning are the algorithms or the technology that makes AI possible. The algorithms learn from data that train the machine. And data science is essential. Without the data science, you wouldn't have the machine learning or feed it into AI. And then AI has a number of components, deep learning, neural networks, and technologies that make it possible. Natural language processing, computer vision, you're going to see examples of all of those. So these are the disruptive technologies, but let's look at some of them in practice. Personal AI. Personal AI is your Fitbit. Tells you a lot about your own health. It tells you a lot about yourself. If you look in the bottom corner one, you'll see that someone is wearing a virtual reality mask. This is often used in coaching. And one example I'll talk about a little bit later is how that's used in PTSD. Up in the right-hand corner, you'll see a woman with glasses on and a little camera on it. What the camera does is envisions or views or takes pictures of people or text or what's in the environment, turns it into algorithms. The algorithms feed it into you can see it going down into her ear. It feeds it into voice that goes into her ear and tells her what the camera is seeing and now essentially what she is seeing. You can see the smartwatch that's giving you some information about your heart. And in the middle, you'll see an app that helps people reduce their stress levels. This is Calm. This is an app that helps reduce stress. So what are the disruptive technologies we want to review? AI and machine learning, artificial intelligence and machine learning, the Internet of medical things. There's Internet of things, there's Internet of nano things, Internet of manufacturing things. There's an Internet of everything. But this is Internet of medical things plus smartphones. The two of them go together. 3D printing, we'll show you what that does. Augmented reality and virtual reality, robots and bots used in many different ways, and blockchain. So we'll go through examples of all of these, of how these technologies are promoting wellness and advancing healthcare. So let's look first at artificial intelligence and machine learning. We've already mentioned that AI helps democratize healthcare. In other words, brings it down to the level of the individual, so the individual can make his or her own decisions. AI will also help identify biomarkers. For example, for COVID, for eye disease, such as diabetic retinopathy and macular degeneration, the biomarkers are developed for that. Smart pills plus sensors. These are smart pills, are pills that have a sensor in them when they are digested. The sensor sends a signal that goes to an application that's in either a sensor on the skin or on our smartphone that says you have taken the pill, and this gives compliance with different kinds of medicines. Smart thermometers will crowdsource fevers and identify hotspots, particularly useful, of course, during COVID. Voice monitoring to detect a condition. AI solutions. Microsoft has Google for accessibility or AI for accessibility, and it has AI for a variety of different things. This is an application, but this solution, particularly AI for accessibility, is for people with disabilities that will identify conditions, allow them to see, hear, and improve their cognitive ability. There are smart beds. Smart beds with technology in the beds to tell you if a patient has gotten out of bed or what is going on in that hospital room. And AI has been used to upskill a nurse's curriculum. One of them is called Project Florence that has helped nurses upgrade, particularly during COVID, to learn new things that are essential for what's going on in the condition. AI is also used to extract data and to develop models from other technologies. Examples, X-rays, MRI, EKGs. And what this does is help diagnose the condition more rapidly. It helps with the accuracy and precision and reduction in false positives. Drug design and vaccine development uses artificial intelligence with machine learning. Can also develop predictive models of health crises. Let me give you a couple of examples. One is at the University of South Florida, where a new AI application has been developed to identify different kinds of mosquitoes or identify mosquitoes. Mosquitoes are picked up and identified and seen on an app on a cell phone that will allow them to send information about where there is a hot spot or they can map the mosquitoes with a sense of what's going to go next in mosquito-borne diseases in the area. And you may remember when COVID was diagnosed first in Wuhan, it was then not diagnosed next by the World Health Organization, but by a company from an epidemiologist, an AI epidemiologist, who has a company named Blue Dot. And what he recognized was that there was an outbreak of viruses in a variety of parts of the world with natural language processing and with machine learning. And what he did is he combed data from airlines, he combed data from hospitals, he combed data from all over the world, picking up information in 65 different languages, which is something else that AI is able to do. And with that, he was then able to predict COVID and where it would be ahead of the World Health Organization, only by a few days. But nonetheless, it shows that AI in somebody else's hands can predict something very quickly. AI is used in rapid sequencing on a population scale to detect and screen en masse. And of course, AI is used for all kinds of business applications in the hospital. Internet of Medical Things. If you look at the diagram, you can see how many Internet of Medical Things, how many different wearable sensory devices there are that people can wear. And this is only a small number of them. There are literally thousands of different wearable devices with apps that feed into a cell phone that can then feed back into a physician and say something about your own health, your stress, your mental health, your cardiac, if there's a cardiac arrest, fitness. Can also attract individuals, for example, have an Internet of Things device on an Alzheimer's patient that may be wandering, and you can find that patient very quickly. You can track disease progression. You can monitor patients 24/7 and prescribe meds in a timely manner or treat an existing condition. You can also aid prevention. In other words, the onset of some kind of condition, such as a seizure, can be easily picked up by the Internet of Things and quickly monitored to save a life, potentially. This is a really neat one, NanoWare. This is where clinical grade sensors are embedded in fabric that will analyze pulmonary, cardiac, circulatory biometrics, and that can capture as many as 120 million data points per day and send that information to an app and then on to a physician. You've already seen an example of artificial vision and hearing devices. Hearing aids can have AI, and you'll see the ads for them all the time, and they can also detect falls that can go back to a physician or anywhere and let somebody know that a person has fallen. Sensors can connect many, many devices at the bedside, and as well as control a smart bed. So Internet of Medical Things is growing and growing and growing in many different ways. And what about 3D printing? 3D printing can design blood vessels, tissues, customize artificial limbs. And if you look at the lower corner on the right-hand side, you will see a limb that's been designed to match the other limb. So the artificial limb looks like, matches in size, and very similar to the natural one. Look at the upper right-hand one, and you can see you can see an artificial ear, which was made by 3D printing to match the other ear of the person who has lost one. You can also design organs, and you can see a heart in somebody's hand. And that's not because they're going to build a heart to put in the body, but they can use that heart to match the patient's heart to do a practice ahead of a treatment or ahead of a surgery. Novel drug delivery devices are made. Exoskeleton, you've seen exoskeleton design on people that are paraplegic and need some kind of a means to be ambulatory once again, and develop all kinds of medical models. Augmented reality and virtual reality will allow you to see ahead what's going to go on in a surgery, practice a surgery, do behavioral health interventions, particularly in something like virtual coaching. And I showed you a picture of a young man with a virtual reality headset on. what has been found is that people with PTSD need to go back to the battlefield and see the battlefield again as they're being coached and perform surgeries. Robots, robotic surgeries of all kinds are available and are done. And you can see the person in the middle picture behind the screen. He is manipulating the robots that are doing the robotic surgery. Virtual patient assistants, virtual nurses, and coronavirus bots. Clara is CDC's coronavirus bots. And what's this for is so many patients with thinking they had coronavirus would call into a nurse or a hospital and try to get answers about coronavirus or about do they have the disease. So a consortium of 51 hospitals and 800 medical clinics developed a bot that provides info to patients with symptoms. So lots of different things. Bots are also used as virtual companions, particularly in healthcare centers of the elderly and of vulnerable individuals, where you can see the picture of the robotic dog and their robotic ponies and their robotic friends. And those are very common, where there is not enough healthcare to spend the time with patients that need to have some kind of assistance. Clean tech, robots are obviously used in public places, and they can develop, and robots can be used to power research equipment. And the last example I'll mention is blockchain. What's blockchain? It's a transparent shared platform that's decentralized, immutable, and cryptographically secured in a lot of locations. In other words, there's no one person that can change a blockchain. A blockchain is completely linked, it's completely private. So it promotes visibility, traceability, privacy, security. It's used a lot in keeping records, particularly in colleges nowadays. You can have your whole college record, all of your academic record on a blockchain. You can provide that blockchain to an employer. This is what's used in electronic health records to maintain personalized health. It's not universally adopted right now. But with this, what you can do is you can take the electronic health records that are anonymized. In other words, they're anonymous. They don't know that your information is going into them. All of that information, tons and tons of information, can be used from these health records for clinical trials, for drug development, to enroll patients in clinical trials, to identify biomarkers, to develop personalized diagnosis in research. So very, very valuable to take all of that information, put it together, as long as you don't know what it is. So the important thing, and I'll conclude with this, is that with all of this information out there about you, the most important thing is privacy, confidentiality, security, and ethics to protect you, to protect your user safety, to assure that there is good algorithm transparency. And that means that these algorithms have to be trained in machine learning to go onto the AI. It has to be explainable data, quality data, and anonymous data, so that there is consumer trust. We meet regulatory issues, you avoid conflict of interest, and you assure that patients are well aware that this information is going to be used. Also, you have to think about cybersecurity. What about somebody hacking into a medical device and reverse engineering it to change it to something that is not good? So this is very important. So this is tech's new disruption in health and wellness. This is how technology is involved to help us rethink what we do in healthcare and wellness, to reimagine for the future, to reinvent new things that are happening every single day, but basically to disrupt using technology. So I hope this was of some interest to you, and thank you very much for watching.